Yo, yo, what is up, guys? Welcome back to Trippy Commentaries. Thanks for checking out the episode. I've got a big one for you today. I do want to give you a quick heads up. We're going to have a meetup in Red Dead Redemption 2 online on both PS4 and Xbox One tomorrow. Make sure to subscribe if you are new. We'd love to have you as part of the Trippy fam. Hit the notification bell. With all notifications on, it'll let you know as soon as we go live. You can join us as we prepare for the next update in Red Dead Online. Today we're going to look at something highly mysterious. You may have come across this early on in your travels. You can find it next to Lake Owanjila. It is a random set of whale bones. Now, I believe this one may be a little bit more obvious, but there's another set of whale bones you can find in the desert that has a bigger secret to it that I'm going to explain in today's episode. Do me a huge favor, hit the like button. It'll really help out. We will have another live stream later on tonight as well, so I hope to see you there. Now, this one, I believe, back in the dino era, maybe a long time ago, everything was a little bit more flooded. And Lake Owanjila was probably a little bit more like the Owanjila Sea. So there was a whale that swam up the upper Montana River, lived in Lake Owanjila, but as everything started to go down, the whale found himself beached, and that is how he got at this particular area. But the other one is a lot different. This one, a little bit more explanatory, or self-explanatory, I should say. The other one, it's in the middle of the desert. I've not found any proof of whales being discovered in Arizona, Colorado, Utah. I think there's one story that lines up with the Red Dead Redemption 2 time period that explains why the whale bones can be found in New Austin. So with that said, I'm going to meet you there. If you guys have any secrets, Easter eggs, or mysteries that you know of here in Red Dead Redemption 2, feel free to drop them in the comment section below. You can hit me up anytime on Twitter at TrippyComs. With that said, I'll meet y'all as John Marston in New Austin. Here we are. Once again, you can walk up to the bones, and the game will let you inspect them. Now, there is a description that you can come across with Arthur Morgan. I think it might be impossible to get here with Arthur, but nonetheless, the game does have a drawing and inscription available if you can somehow pull it off. Now, in this case, it's John. You can see the drawing is chicken scratch. It says, "A whale in the desert, another thing I don't understand." So in this case, you can see that it is very far away from the water in Red Dead Redemption 2 terms. So I believe because this one cannot be found in Red Dead Redemption 1, if you come to the same location in that game, there are no sperm whale bones. So I believe that this one was actually dumped. You can correlate this to another story that you may not have heard before, and it'll tell us why the whale bone is for some reason in the middle of the desert. I mean, maybe there is a chance that the whale came all the way down the prehistoric San Luis River and somehow beached itself way up there, but I feel like there is a story that explains it much better. I still wish this was a pterodactyl. You can find the other dinosaur bones in the game and eventually make some sort of T-Rex creation that is probably not a real dinosaur at all. So this could have been a huge pterodactyl, but instead the game kind of verifies that it is indeed sperm whale bones, somehow randomly in the desert. I recently heard about this story. It is extremely trippy. Wait till you hear it. But because it's from so long ago, many people don't know if it's real or fiction. Either way, Rockstar is representing the whale of a tale from back in 1873 within Red Dead Redemption 2. So in 1890, the Utah Enquirer published an article titled Whales in Salt Lake. According to the article, two juvenile Australian whales, one female and one male, were planted in the Great Salt Lake in 1873. James Wickham imported them and commissioned special rail cars filled with seawater to transport the whales from San Francisco to the lake. So there's James Wickham. Here's a picture of the train with the whale inside. In order to move two Australian whales from San Francisco to the Great Salt Lake, Mr. Wickham commissioned two special rail cars to hold 30,000 gallons of seawater and safely transport the animals to their new lake habitat. This tintype is the only known photograph of Mr. Wickham's commissioned rail cars. The ability to mail the whales by train made this experiment possible. Now, back in those days, they were trying some crazy stuff. Back in the period of H.G. Wells, and, many people had a lot of creativity because technology wasn't quite as advanced as it is, of course, how we know it. Train transporting whales to Great Salt Lake. The path to the Great Salt Lake was set forth by the Central Pacific Railroad from Northern California to Corrine, Utah. Mr. Wickham determined that the ideal location to plant the whales was a small bay where Bear River met the lake. Situated just west of this confluence, Corrine was known at the time as the gentle capital of Utah. At its peak, the town boasted 1,000 permanent residents, none of whom were Mormon. Look at that. Can you believe that? Whales within the huge Salt Lake. I've been to Salt Lake City, Utah. The lake is actually pretty big, but if you've never heard about it, it is a salt lake, meaning if you go into it, you can practically float. The salt is so thick. Mr. Wickham planted the whales in a small bay with fencing he installed to keep the animals corralled. After a few minutes of inactivity, the whales broke free and swam to deeper waters. Within minutes, they were out of sight, and Mr. Wickham gazed helplessly at the salty sea. 6 months later, an associate of Mr. Wickham spotted the whales not 50 miles from their intended home in Great Salt Lake. This tintype is the only known photograph, so I guess that's supposed to be a sighting of the whale. You can see just how big the actual Salt Lake is. You know, it's almost like a sea. But I don't think the whales would live in an environment like that. You know, with so much salt, they probably would not like that at all. Thus, you know, that is why there is no whales living in Salt Lake to this day. We would definitely know about that. They probably would die and be found just like we found there in New Austin. Today, no one talks much about the whales of Great Salt Lake. The animals live in the deepest sections of water, far from shore. Perhaps this is how the story of the Loch Ness Monster actually happened. You know, maybe it's something a little bit more like this. Either way, this is a pretty trippy story from way back in the day, and it definitely correlates with the time period of Red Dead Redemption 2. We know Rockstar has represented some of the biggest myths from the period within the Red Dead Redemption series, like Bigfoot, flying machines, freaks of nature, and even huge sea creatures being traveled across the desert within trains. I cannot wait till Red Dead Redemption 3. I think Rockstar will go even bigger. Much love, guys. Let me know what y'all think about this story, and if that's the reason why the whale bones can be found way out here in the middle of the desert here in New Austin. I got another big video on the way. I got a special guest joining up. Also, stay tuned. We'll go live later on tonight for a live stream right here in Red Dead Redemption 2. Adios, muchachos. I'll see you at the live stream later on tonight. We'll be investigating one of the game's biggest mysteries. Until then, as always, make sure to stay trippy, my friends. Y'all come back now, you hear?